The sun shines into Xinyi's apartment, and the curtains sway gently, as if mocking the illusion of this small town. Xinyi City looks so peaceful. There are always old people drinking pu'er in the tea houses on the streets and chatting about old stories. The surrounding rural relics still have stone arch bridges and abandoned ancestral halls from the Ming and Qing dynasties. But who knows how many shadows are hidden under this peace? Disappearance cases have been popping up intermittently since last year. Some people said they went out to work and lost contact, while others whispered that they were caused by wild beasts in the mountains. But Xinyi knew that it was not a simple matter. It has been 3 months since her sister Xiaowei disappeared. The police closed the case and said she ran away from home, but she didn't believe it. At noon that day, Xinyi came back from the newspaper office, and there was an unsigned letter in her mailbox. The envelope was made of ordinary craft paper, with the corners slightly rolled up, as if someone had pinched it several times. Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened them. There was only a piece of white paper inside, with scrawled handwriting that read, "Stop digging, this is the end of Xiaowei's matter. Otherwise, your fate will be worse than hers." There was no postmark, as if it had been stuffed in by hand. Xinyi's heart suddenly sank. She stared at the words, and the voice of Xiaowei's last phone call flashed in her mind. "Sister, I am living well in the small town, but something is wrong, don't worry." She crumpled the letter into a ball and threw it into the trash can, but then took it out and flattened it. As a reporter, she had seen too many anonymous complaints, but this was different. It was a threat, directed to her heart. Who knew I was investigating? She murmured to herself, and the neighbor's aunt's cry came from outside the window, "Bring a pound of fresh rice dumpling leaves." Everything was so normal, but she felt a chill in the air, like the mist seeping from the ancient ruins of the small town. Recalling that before Xiaowei came to Xinyi City, everything was fine. The two sisters moved here from a big city and wanted to change their environment. Xiaowei worked as a clerk in a small local company, while Xinyi worked as an investigative reporter in a newspaper. Life in a small town is like an ink painting, slow and leisurely. But 1 month before she disappeared, Xiaowei changed. In the past, she loved to stay at home and watch dramas, but now she goes out frequently, always coming back after dark. Once, Xinyi woke up in the middle of the night and heard her talking on the phone in a low voice in the living room. "I know, but I can't give that thing." Her voice was kept low, as if she was afraid of being heard. Xinyi asked, but she just smiled and said it was a work matter, "Don't think too much about it." But there was something hidden in that smile. Xinyi realized now, it was fear. "We can't just let it go." Xinyi took a deep breath and grabbed her coat. She decided to start with Xiaowei's old residence. It was an apartment shared by the sisters. After Xiaowei disappeared, the landlord took away the key, but Xinyi had a spare. As she drove through the city, the sweet-scented osmanthus trees on the roadside were in full bloom, and the fragrance was fragrant, but it made her feel even more depressed. Xinyi City is not big, with a population of just over 100,000. It is said that there are underground passages in the surrounding rural ruins, which are rumored to be used for smuggling in the old days. But the recent disappearances are reminiscent of something darker. Some neighbors privately said that it was a grudge between local families and some underground organization was involved. The police ignored her and the newspaper didn't dare to dig deeper, but Xinyi couldn't stop. Downstairs in the apartment, several electric cars were parked, and children were chasing each other in the corridor. Xinyi went upstairs, opened the door, and felt a stuffy smell coming from inside. Xiaowei's room remains intact, with her favorite blue sweater folded on the bed and several romance novels scattered on the desk. Xinyi sat down and opened the drawer. Inside were some odds and ends, cosmetics, old ticket stubs, and Xiaowei's diary. But the last page of the diary was from the week before the disappearance, and it said, "They are here again, I have to be careful." Them? Who? Xinyi frowned, feeling a chill in her heart. These abnormal signs were like missing pieces of a puzzle, and she had to put the pieces together herself. She opened the bedside table, which was filled with miscellaneous items. Suddenly, a yellowed old photo slid out. In the photo, it was an old house with several blurry figures standing in front of the door. One of the girls looked like Xiao Wei when she was a child. On the back it says, "Old family home, don't forget your roots." Old house. It was left behind by their grandfather. It was on the edge of the rural ruins on the outskirts of the city. It had been unoccupied for many years and was said to be haunted. Xinyi's heartbeat quickened. The photo was hidden so deeply. Why didn't Xiao Wei tell her? Could the disappearance have something to do with this, she thought, as the handwriting of the anonymous letter flashed in her mind. The threat actor knew she was digging, which meant the clues were nearby. She needs help. Xinyi took out her cell phone and dialed Siyu's number. Siyu is her old college friend who now owns a small cafe in a small town and is well informed. "Hello, Xinyi. Why are you calling at this time?" Siyu's voice was a little surprised, and there was the buzz of the coffee machine in the background. "Siyu, Xiao Wei's matter has new developments." Xinyi lowered her voice. "I received an anonymous letter, warning me not to investigate. I also found an old photo in Xiao Wei's room, pointing to the family's old house. Do you know that place?" There was silence on the other end of the phone for 2 seconds, and Siyu's tone became cautious. "The old house? That place is very evil. I heard that the disappearances are related to the surrounding ruins. I advise you not to go alone. Xinyi City seems peaceful, but the water underneath is deep. Those family grudges have been buried since the Republic of China. How about I help you find out?" "Thanks, Siyu. Don't make any noise for now, I have to go and see for myself." Xinyi said, listening to Siyu's sigh. She felt a little warmer in her heart. At least, there is an ally. After hanging up the phone, she stuffed the photo into her bag and drove to the outskirts of the city. As the sun sets, the road becomes narrower and narrower, with rice fields and barren slopes on both sides, and the rural ruins in the distance look like ghostly shadows. The old house is a 2-story brick building next to the ruins. The front door is covered with weeds and the windows are covered with dust. Xinyi parked the car and pushed open the rusty iron door. The creaking sound echoed in the empty air. As she stepped in, the fear in her heart wrapped around her like a vine. If there were really secrets hidden here, what would be the consequences of the anonymous letter? Dust was flying in the hall. She fumbled to turn on the light, but she saw only a modeled family photo on the wall and a half-open door, with something vaguely moving behind it. Xinyi's heart was beating fast. Behind the half-open door, there was faint movement like a mouse gnawing something. She grasped the flashlight beam of her mobile phone and slowly opened the door. The dust fell, making her cough a few times. Inside is a small study room. The bookshelves are filled with yellowed old books, and a few torn papers are scattered on the floor. There was no one, just the wind coming in through the broken window and blowing a loose curtain. She breathed a sigh of relief, but felt that this place was too weird, like the ancestral halls in rural ruins in small towns. They were quiet on the surface, but there were unknown secrets hidden underneath. She knelt down and picked up the pieces of paper on the ground. They were some yellowed letterheads with blurred handwriting. Under the bookshelf, there is a small wooden box with a rusty lock. She used a key to pry it open, and it was filled with miscellaneous items, old photos, family trees, and a leather-bound diary with, "Don't forget the family motto," engraved on the cover. Xinyi's heart tightened. This is not Xiao Wei's thing, this is an old family diary, from her grandfather's generation. She turned to the first page, and although the ink was faint, it was clearly written, "In the 20th year of the Republic of China, under the ruins of Xinyi village, the family had a grudge against outsiders. That batch of smuggled goods buried many lives. The disappearances were never just accidents. There were scattered records of several old events in the back. Villagers disappeared inexplicably, pointing to the underground passage in the ruins, involving the grievances of local prominent families." Xinyi's head buzzed. This was consistent with the recent disappearance case. Why did Xiao Wei hide this photo? Does she know this? She stuffed the diary into her bag and left the old house in a hurry. The night was already dark, and the car lights illuminated the road ahead. She drove back to the apartment, her mind a mess all the way. Those clues, like flowers in the smoke, point to family grudges, but who is behind the scenes? The threat of the anonymous letter pierced my heart like a thorn. Her hands were still shaking when she parked the car. When I walked in, the mailbox was bulging again. She opened the second envelope, which was still on craft paper, and the handwriting was more scrawled. Have you been to the old house? If you dig deeper, it will be your turn to disappear. The secrets of those ruins are not something you can touch. Xinyi's face turned pale. How did this person know? Her investigation has been followed. Fear came over her like a tide, and she leaned against the door and slid to the floor. Outside the window, the neighbor's dog barked several times, which sounded particularly harsh. That night, Xinyi had a nightmare. In the dream, she was walking on the stone arch bridge in the countryside. Xiaowei stretched out her hand from the fog. Sister, don't come, they are below. Under the bridge, there were black shadows, like countless pairs of eyes staring at her. She woke up with a cold sweat on her head and the sheets were soaked. It's still dark outside, and the sound of cockcrows can be heard from afar. She sat up and rubbed her temples, thinking, I can no longer carry it alone. As a reporter, she was used to being alert, but this time, the threat was too real. Siyu's words echoed in her ears, the water is deep. She needed professional help. In the morning, Xinyi made a cup of strong coffee, opened the newspaper directory, and found Su Feng's contact information. This private detective is well known in Qingyun City and specializes in taking cases that the police do not touch. It is said that he comes from a big city and is experienced, but always has an air of mystery. She dialed the number and the other end rang a few times before picking up. Su Feng. I'm Xinyi, a reporter from Qingyun newspaper. She tried to keep her voice steady. I have a case and I want your help. Regarding the disappearance, it involves anonymous threats. On the other end of the phone, Su Feng's voice was low and smelled of tobacco. Missing cases? There are so many in Qingyun. Tell me the details. What's the price? Xinyi hesitated for a moment and briefly told Xiaowei's story, the anonymous letter and the discovery of the old diary. She didn't mention the family feud part, so she wasn't sure about her trust level yet. Su Feng listened and occasionally hummed, it doesn't sound simple. I heard that there are shadows of underground organizations in those ruins. I have seen similar ones involving gang smuggling, which lasted from the Republic of China to the present. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I will meet at the tea house on the edge of the city. After hanging up the phone, Xinyi breathed a sigh of relief. This guy sounded reliable, but there was a hint of exhaustion in his tone, as if he was carrying some baggage. She changed into low-key clothes, brought her diary and photos, and took a detour when she went out to make sure no one was following her. On the streets of Qingyun City, there are always vendors selling candied haws. The red hawthorn strings dangle in the sun, looking so harmless. But now everything she looks at feels shadowy. The tea house is on the outskirts of the city, with Yun Lai engraved on the wooden signboard, and the aroma of pu'er fills the air. Su Feng is already sitting in the corner. He is in his early 50s. His strong body is wrapped in a gray jacket. There is an old scar on his face, from his eyebrow bone to his chin. He ordered a pot of tiguanyin. When he saw her coming, he raised his head and smiled. Sit down. You are young, but you are focusing on such a difficult case. Aren't you afraid? Xinyi sat down and handed over the diary and photos. I'm afraid, but I'm even more afraid that the truth will be buried. Xiaowei is my sister, and she behaved abnormally before she disappeared. I think it has something to do with it. You see, the disappearance mentioned in this diary points to the grudges under the ruins. The anonymous letter warned me not to dig up, and the second letter last night was more cruel, saying that I had attracted attention. Su Feng opened the diary, read a few pages with squinted eyes, and frowned. Well, the family grievances are true. The ruins around Qingyun used to be smuggling channels, and they may still be used now. Missing people are most likely to be dragged by underground organizations to do dirty work. They are controlled by gangs, and the police dare not touch them due to pressure. He paused, and a strange look flashed in his eyes. I have taken over similar cases and help you investigate, but they have to be kept secret. The price is easy to negotiate, so let's talk about cooperation first. You provide clues, and I will contribute. Xinyi nodded, but noticed that he tapped his fingers on the table, as if he was suppressing something. She probed tactfully, how long have you been in Xinyi? I heard that you have a connection with the detective agency from the big city. Are you familiar with the gangs here? Su Feng smiled and picked up the teacup. Are you familiar with it or not? The case is important. Those organizations are nested in layers, and most of the missing cases are money and power. Your diary is a good clue, pointing to the old family, the Li family or the Wang family. You have to go to the ruins to verify. But be careful, the threatening letter means that someone is watching you. Change your mobile phone number, don't act alone. The two chatted for half an hour, and Su Feng drew a simple map and marked several suspicious points in the ruins. As Xinyi listened, the fear in her heart faded a little, replaced by determination. This is the first step. She starts fighting alone and starts to recruit allies. The feeling of growth is like the sweetness after the bitterness of coffee. But the look in Su Feng's eyes always made her feel that he was hiding something. Was that scar left by a gangster? She didn't ask, now wasn't the time. After leaving the tea house, Xinyi's cell phone rang. It was Siyu. Xinyi clenched her cell phone. The scent of osmanthus on the street hit her face, but she couldn't hide the chill in her heart. Thanks, Siyu. I'll be careful. The clues point to underground organizations. We have to hurry up. After hanging up the phone, she looked at the map, and the shadow of a nightmare flashed through her mind. The investigation has just begun, and the pressure is like an invisible net, tightening tighter and tighter. But she couldn't stop. Xiao Wei's voice was still echoing in her ears. The setting sun lengthened the shadow, and she drove towards the ruins, with Su Feng's car lights following in the rearview mirror. As night fell, the outline of the rural ruins gradually became clearer, and there was a faint whisper in the wind, like the secrets in an old diary, calling her to go deeper. The night was dark, and the stone arch bridge in the countryside cast long shadows under the car lights. Xinyi tightened her grip on the steering wheel, her heartbeat speeding up along with the bumpy dirt road. In the rearview mirror, Su Feng's off-road vehicle followed steadily, like a reliable shadow. They left the neon lights of Qingyun City and entered this old land wrapped in fog. The wind squeezed in through the cracks in the car windows, mixing with the smell of soil and wild flowers. The descriptions in the diary seemed to come alive. The ruins of Qingyun village were once a hub for smuggling, and the passage underneath connected the family ancestral hall and the black market. Stop under the old locust tree in front. Su Feng's voice came from the intercom, hoarse and alert. Don't turn on the lights, there are spies in the ruins. The underground entrance mentioned in the diary is probably on the stone wall beside the bridge. Xinyi nodded, turned off the engine and grabbed her backpack, which contained a diary, flashlight and kettle. When she got out of the car, her feet made a slight rustling sound on the soft grass. Su Feng walked over, the smell of tobacco dissipating from his body in the night wind. He handed her a small flashlight, low light mode. Remember, don't touch things, this place is not clean. The two of them walked along the arch bridge, and the moonlight shone on the ruins, like a ghost town covered in silver frost. The ruins are an old village from the Republic of China. The stone houses are tilted and covered with vines. The outline of the ancestral hall is faintly visible in the distance. Xinyi opened the diary and read in the dim light, there is a mark of the Li family at the entrance of the passage, 3 curved lines, like a snake swallowing the moon. The missing San went in from there and never came back. She whispered, Li family? It was mentioned several times in the diary. It seems that a prominent local family started from smuggling goods. Su Feng squatted down and used his fingers to push away the weeds beside the bridge. Yes, the Li family and the Wang family have a deep grudge. The Qingyun surface is peaceful, but underneath is their world. Look, there are scratches here. He wiped off a layer of dust, revealing a symbol on a stone wall, 3 curved lines, vaguely like snakes. Xinyi's heart sank. This was no coincidence, it was exactly the same as the diary. A secret network passed down from generation to generation, Su Feng murmured, his voice low. These marks are secret codes that connect to underground passages. Missing people are probably taken away from here and sold to other places to work as coolies, or worse. Your Xiaowei may have stepped on this line. Xinyi nodded. Xiaowei's smiling face flashed in her mind. That girl always liked to gossip in cafes, how could she get involved in such a thing? She touched the stone wall, and the cold touch rushed through it like electricity. We have to go in and take a look. The diary said that there are old boxes in the passage, hiding evidence. Su Feng shook his head, it's too risky. Let's explore the path around the edge first, and I'll bring the tools. He took out the crowbar and rope from his bag, and the two of them walked along the edge of the ruins, their steps as light as cats. The wind was strong and the leaves were rustling. Xinyi suddenly felt a chill on the back of her neck, as if a pair of eyes were staring at her. She didn't pay attention to the car just now, but looking back now, she seemed to have a car light flashing in the rearview mirror. Someone, she whispered, pulling Su Feng's sleeve, I feel like I'm being followed. Su Feng's eyes flashed, and he stopped, don't panic. Go into the bushes. He pulled her into a bush, and the two of them squatted down and listened with bated breath. In the distance, footsteps sounded, light but rapid, as if someone was chasing him in the dark. Xinyi's heart was pounding and her palms were sweaty. She clutched the flashlight, her mind in confusion. Has the threat from the anonymous letter come true? Who is this person? The organization's spy. As the footsteps approached, a dark shadow flashed past the bridge. A tall and thin figure, wearing a hood, with something dangling in his hand, a mobile phone? Or a knife? The dark shadow stopped in front of the marked stone wall, bending down and groping, as if confirming something. Xinyi bit her lip, fear wrapped around her heart like a vine, but she forced herself to calm down. She couldn't panic, this was an investigation, and nothing would be lost if she ran away. Wait until he turns around, Su Feng whispered, his voice as steady as a rock, I'll go around behind you. Don't move. He slipped out of the bushes like a ghost and walked around to the shadow's flank. Xinyi watched, admiring the skills of this old detective. The black shadow suddenly became alert, turned around and ran, heading deeper into the woods. Su Feng caught up with him, threw him down in a few steps, and locked his neck with his iron arms. Who sent you here? Tell me. The shadow struggled and grunted. He had no weapon, but a small book fell out of his pocket. Xinyi rushed out and helped hold down the opponent's arm. How long have you been following me? Why are you staring at the ruins? The black figure gasped, his face hidden in the shadow, and his voice was hoarse. Let go. I'm just passing by. Don't bother, this place is not for you to play. He twisted hard, threw Su Feng away, got up and ran. Su Feng didn't chase, picked up the book and opened it. Inside were some scribbled notes, marking Xinyi's license plate and the address of her old home. Eyeliner, Su Feng frowned and handed her the notebook, organized to monitor people who dig out the truth. Fortunately, we didn't pursue them too deeply, otherwise we would be in big trouble. Xinyi looked at the notebook, her hands still shaking, but a surge of anger arose from fear. The piece of the small town is like a layer of tissue paper, which will be broken when you poke it. She took a deep breath. Thank you, Su Feng. You are very skilled, how did you get around back then? Su Feng leaned against the tree and lit a cigarette. The scars on his face were reflected in the firelight. I used to take on cases like this in big cities. I helped a girl investigate gang smuggling, but she disappeared. I almost fell into it. The police suppressed the case, so I had to come to Qingyun and keep a low profile. The taste of failure is bitter. He puffed out the cigarette, his eyes darkened. So I help you, but I have to be careful. My secret? I just don't want to see people disappear again. Xinyi was stunned for a moment. This was the first time that he had revealed something. It turns out that this man is not only tired, but also frustrated. She nodded, I understand. We can't repeat the same mistakes. Shall we continue? The two of them got back on the road and walked around to the slope behind the ancestral hall. Su Feng used a pry to pry open a loose stone slab, revealing a narrow crack. It was dark inside, and the wind blew out of it, carrying a musty smell. The passage, he said, but we won't enter tonight. The mark confirms that the Li family network is still alive. Most of the missing traces are in it. Just as she was talking, Xinyi's phone vibrated. It was an encrypted message from an unknown number. See you? She clicked on, Xinyi, I heard that you went to the ruins. Don't believe the complete picture of the mark. Gangsters manipulated the disappearances. Not only the Li family, but also the Wang family were involved. They used the ruins to transport people and sold them to coastal construction sites. The two young people who disappeared recently were caught near the cafe. I was targeted, and someone asked me about your whereabouts. Escape quickly, don't let me help you in vain. Xinyi's expression changed and she quickly replied, see you, where are you? What should I do if it's dangerous? There was no reply. She turned to Su Feng and said, the news given by Siyu is that two gangster families have joined forces, and the missing person is the transporter. The girl was involved, and someone asked her about me. Su Feng frowned, she is an informant. The proprietress of Qingyun's cafe is well informed, but this is troublesome. The organization will not leave her alive, so we have to protect her. Return to the city first and fight for clues. They withdrew from the ruins, the moonlight lengthened the shadows, and Xinyi's mind kept spinning. Those anonymous letters, notes, and diaries, all put together, the darkness of the small town is like a net, trapping countless people. Xiao Wei's disappearance is no longer an isolated case, but the tip of the iceberg. As she drove, her hands became much steadier, her fear not gone, but her vigilance was like a knife, sharpened even more. In the past, she could only report. Now, she has to tear off the skin with her own hands. Back in the car, Xinyi flipped through the diary again and looked at it carefully by the instrument light. On the second half of the page, the handwriting is hurriedly written, that old fox of the Wang family controls everything. The missing threads are all tied to Chen Lao Wu. He is hiding in the old warehouse to the east of the ruins. Don't let him escape. Chen Lao Wu. This name exploded like thunder. The key clue was right here. Xinyi's heartbeat accelerated, looking out the window into the dark night, the shadow of the Wang family seemed to be coming towards her face. The car was speeding on the night road, and the lights of Qingyun city gradually lit up, attracting people like a will-o'-the-wisp in the distance. Xinyi's hand was still holding the steering wheel, and the phrase, Chen Laowu, in her mind was like a thorn, keeping her awake. Su Feng was sitting in the passenger seat, smoking a cigarette. The smoke filled the car and blurred the fog outside the window. Chen Laowu, this name sounds familiar, he finally spoke, his voice as low as being squeezed out of his chest. The old member of the Wang family, who used to be in charge of smuggling, was mentioned several times in the disappearance case. You can't just rely on the diary, you have to find hard evidence. Tomorrow morning, go to the library to dig up old files. All the old accounts of family grievances are recorded there. Xinyi nodded and stared at the road ahead. Yes, the mark at the ruins confirmed the activities of the Li and Wang family, but how did Xiao Wei get involved? I glanced at the last page of the diary, and there seemed to be a fragment of her handwriting. I have to look carefully. She glanced at the rearview mirror. She was relieved that the empty road was empty, but the shadow in her heart did not dissipate. It was already 2 o'clock in the morning when she returned to her small apartment. Su Feng didn't leave. He leaned on the sofa and squinted his eyes. I'll keep watch and you can take a nap. The organization has many informants, so don't be careless. As soon as it dawned, the two of them went out. The library of Qingyun City is hidden at the end of the old street. It is a gray brick building in the style of the Republic of China. The door is covered with morning glories. It looks like a cultural relic on the surface, but inside it is a warehouse of memories of the small town. Su Feng took the lead, wearing an old jacket and pretending to be a retired old man studying history. Xinyi followed behind, stuffing a diary in her backpack, pretending to be a college student. Keep a low profile, Su Feng whispered, pushing open the glass door. The archives are underground and you have to swipe your card. Fortunately, I have old connections. It was empty inside. The aunt who was the morning shift librarian yawned, glanced at them, and then lowered her head to play with her mobile phone. Su Feng came over and handed over a business card with a smile. Sister, help open the archives door. I am a foreign reporter, checking local historical materials. The aunt glanced and muttered, again digging for dirty information. Okay, don't touch things. She swiped the card and led them downstairs. The lights in the stairwell were dim, and the air smelled of musty paper, like secrets that had been buried for 100 years. The archives room is large but messy, with numerous iron cabinets and yellowed labels. Su Feng was familiar with the roads and went straight to the local chronicles area, opened the drawer and rummaged around. The feud between King Li and King Li started in the late Qing dynasty, he said in a low voice as he turned the page. The Li family started off on the Tea Horse Road. The Wang family engaged in salt and iron smuggling. The two families fought for territory and had bloodshed. During the Republic of China, it went underground and the missing persons case started from there. Look at this article. In 1930, a fire broke out in the Wang family ancestral hall and burned 3 people to death. It is said that it was the Li family's revenge. But the clues underneath point to human trafficking and the black market in the early years. Xinyi came closer and scanned the yellowed newspaper clippings with her eyes. Trafficking? Not coolies, but people. Xiao Wei's diary mentioned something similar, saying that underground organizations sold people to coastal factories, or even darker ones. She took out the diary from her bag and read it carefully by the lamp. Xiao Wei's handwriting appeared in the second half of the book, crookedly, as if she had written in a hurry. Sister, I heard the gossip in the cafe. The Wang family is recruiting temporary workers. The pay is high, but when signing the contract, there are always spies watching. Siyu said, this is Mr. Chen, he is in charge of transporting people from the ruins to other provinces. Last night I overheard that they mentioned the exposure network, so I tried to dig it up, but someone warned me that the anonymous letter came. Sister, don't tell me, I'm afraid it will incriminate you. Xinyi's heart clenched and her fingers trembled. Xiao Wei is not a victim. She takes the initiative to contact the organization and tries to expose the human trafficking network. This explains the sudden disappearance and why the diary was hidden in the old house. She wanted to be a hero, Xinyi murmured, with sourness in her voice. Like me, she chased the truth. But she stepped on a thunderbolt. She looked up at Su Feng, her eyes burning. Su Feng, what do you think? I have to match Xiao Wei's courage. Tell me, how did your old case fall into place? Don't hide it, I need to know that we have a chance of winning if we work together. Su Feng stopped turning the files and leaned against the cabinet, his eyes flickering, as if he was weighing the weight of trust. The clock in the library is ticking, and the air is so quiet that you can hear your heartbeat. He sighed, okay, part of it. 10 years ago, I helped a girl investigate smuggling in a big city gang case. She was like your sister, passionate and wanted to break the news. As a result, we sneaked into the warehouse and found that they used ships to transfer people and sold them to Southeast Asia as laborers. I rescued her, but was shot. The old wound was on my shoulder. She later disappeared, and I kept her name secret. The secret was that it was not just a physical injury, but also a scar in my heart. So I kept a low profile, like me back then. Xinyi listened, nodded, stretched out her hand and patted his arm. Thank you, Su Feng. It's not about retreating, it's about moving forward. Family grudges bind the gangs, and we have to break this thread. Just as she was talking, Xinyi's cell phone vibrated with an unknown number and the ringtone was as harsh as an alarm. She picked up the call, and the electronically changed voice was eerie. Lin Xinyi, don't dig up Wang Li's old archives. Chen Laowu is targeting you, stop, otherwise your sister's fate will be yours. After the call was hung up, Xinyi's face turned pale, and her head was buzzing. Suddenly, her vision blurred, and she seemed to see a black shadow flashing behind the filing cabinet, like the outline of Xiaowei. She stretched out her hand to ask for help, but it turned into smoke. Hallucination? Or is it fear? She rubbed her eyes, her heart beating like a drum. Threat, they know we are here. Let's go. Su Feng reacted quickly, pulled her up and rushed to the door, back door. Don't panic. They rushed out of the archives room, and their footsteps made random noises in the stairwell. Su Feng pushed open the back door, feeling the night breeze blowing against his face, but the old injury on his shoulder suddenly throbbed, like burning. He groaned and staggered, damn it. I'm catching up. Yes, Su Feng gritted his teeth and said as he ran, they hold grudges, and my scar is proof of it. Quick, get in the car. The two got into the off-road vehicle parked in the back alley, the engine roared and the tires screeched against the ground. In the rearview mirror, a black car was chasing me, its headlights were like wolf eyes. Xinyi's heart was pounding, and the hallucination came again. Outside the car window, the streets of the small town were twisted, like the pages of a diary flying around, filled with missing faces, staring at her and smiling. Psychological horror, like an invisible net, tightens the throat. She forced herself to focus. How do they know? There are spies in the library. Su Feng stepped on the accelerator, shook off the pursuers, and turned into the alley. It's not just eyeliners, it's modern stuff. The organization has been upgraded, and it uses technology for surveillance. Look at this. He took out a small device from under the dashboard, and the red light flashed. The tracker, someone stuck it on during the ruins last night. Traditional diaries hide secrets, and they use GPS and monitors to keep track of people. In comparison, it's even more insidious. Chen Lao's handiwork, old grudges have been put on new skins. The car stopped in front of an abandoned tea house on the outskirts of the city, and the two got out of the car panting. Su Feng rubbed his shoulders, his face pale. The wound is cracked and needs to be bandaged. Your sister's diary proves that she has touched the core of the organization, the human trafficking network, which draws people from Xinyi to black factories on the coast, and even overseas. Exposed? She is too naive. As soon as he finished speaking, a figure flashed out from the side door of the tea house. It was Siyu. Her face was pale and her hair was messy, like someone who had fled. She rushed over and handed Xinyi a crumpled photo. Xinyi, Detective Su, take it. This is a photo of Chen Laowu and the boss of the Wang family, secretly taken from the back alley of the cafe. They had a meeting last night and mentioned you and Xiaowei. I was targeted. Someone just smashed the glass of my shop and left a message, shut up. The power of the organization is not only the traditional gang, but also online surveillance. They hacked into my phone. Xinyi took the photo. There were two men in it, one fat and one thin. In the background was the ruined arch bridge, their eyes fierce. She hugged Siyu and said, "Are you crazy? Why didn't you tell me earlier? We have to protect you." Siyu shook her head, her voice trembling. "When I was in college, you always dragged me into chasing gossips, and now it's me. But the danger is great, and I have to hide." In the photo, the thin man is Chen Laowu, who is in charge of transportation. Xiaowei heard that she had talked to him and tried to trick him. As a result, she disappeared. Use this evidence to call the police or the big media. But be careful, their network is everywhere. Su Feng nodded with firm eyes. "See you, thank you. We will take you to a safe place. Go back to my nest first and discuss the next step." Chen Laowu's photo is a breakthrough, but the organization's technological means must be cracked. He turned to Xinyi. "What about you? Are you still persistent?" Xinyi looked at the photo. Xiaowei's shadow overlapped in her mind, and the hallucination receded, replaced by calm anger, more persistent. Traditional diaries versus modern surveillance, we have to play both sides. Let's go, don't let them succeed. The three of them got in the car, the lights of the tea house dimmed in the fog, and the darkness of Xinyi seemed to deepen. The car bumped along the foggy suburban road. Su Feng held the steering wheel. The wound on his shoulder was still aching, but he gritted his teeth and said nothing. Siyu, who was in the back seat, hugged her knees and stared at the dark shadows of the trees outside the window, as if waiting for something ghost to appear. Xinyi was sitting in the passenger seat, holding the photo in her hand, her mind racing. In the photo, Chen Laowu is as thin as a bamboo pole, with squinted eyes. The arch bridge in the background is the symbol of the Wang family's ruins. The traditional stones are covered with moss, but there is a sense of modern coldness. The organization's technological surveillance may be hidden in the cracks of the old bricks. Send Siyu to your safe house first, Xinyi said, her voice calmer, her anger still simmering. Su Feng, is the nest you are talking about renovated from the old warehouse? The door is locked tightly and there is no surveillance. Su Feng glanced at the rearview mirror and confirmed that there was no tail. Yes, there is an anti-theft device installed by me in the old tea factory site on the east side of the city. Siyu, turn off your mobile phone and don't touch the internet. It is easy to organize hackers to locate you. Traditional gangsters use diaries and anonymous letters, but now GPS and hidden cameras are added. Qingyun is a small town with a simple surface but a network of wires underneath. Siyu nodded, her voice as low as a mosquito's snort. Thank you. I wanted to help, but ended up getting myself in. Over at the cafe, the glass was broken, and the message was carved with a knife, betrayer will die. They suspected that I leaked the secret, and I heard her mention it several times about Xiao Wei. She said that Chen Lao's transfer line pulls people from the ruins, puts them into trucks and goes to the coast. The pay is high, but the people are gone. Xinyi turned around and held her hand. You are not betraying, you are saving people. I have to read Xiao Wei's diary again. In the fragment she wrote in the library just now, she mentioned the basement of the old house. It's not the Wang family's, but the Li family's old house, the ruins on the west side of the city. The mark is an ancient teapot pattern, hidden in the diary. Maybe it's where she hides evidence. Let's go explore it tonight. Su Feng frowned and stepped on the accelerator harder. Night spy. It's too risky. Chen Lao's photos prove that he is in charge of transportation, but the organization's informants are running around. Don't be too stressed, just make up your imagination. It's not just imagination. Xinyi shook her head, took out the diary, and opened it by the car light. Look at this page. In the middle, there are blurred ink words. Under the teapot, the room of forgetfulness. A traditional symbol used to hide smuggled goods during King Li's grievances. No matter how powerful the technological surveillance is, it can't sweep away the secrets in the underground soil. Xiao Wei took the initiative to tell Chen Laowu that he must have been there before disappearing and left something behind. Siyu, the group photo in your photo proves that they are still active. We can't wait. Siyu sighed, okay, but you be careful. When I get to the safe house, I will send you an encrypted message and tell you the latest gossip heard in the cafe. Chen Laowu is recruiting new people recently. He says he is a ruin tour guide, but he is actually Lezhuangding. The car turned into the east of the city and stopped in front of a hidden iron gate. Su Feng pressed the hidden button and the door slid open. Inside was a simple space with old maps and monitoring screens hanging on the wall. Siyu got out of the car and hugged Xinyi. When I was in college, you always said that pursuing the truth is like drinking tea, you have to sip it slowly. Now, this tea is so bitter. Take care. After the door closed, Su Feng turned to Xinyi. She's right, it's bitter. But you have changed. After the phone call from the library, fear did not crush you, but ignited it. Rest for 2 hours and set off at 9 o'clock in the evening. Bring a flashlight and self-defense spray. My shoulder injury has been wrapped, and it's fine. Xinyi nodded, feeling warm in her heart. Su Feng's openness made her feel that she was not alone. Xiao Wei's courage is like a torch passed down to her, and she must catch it steadily. 2 hours later, the night was as thick as ink. They drove a low-key second-hand car and slipped into the west of the city. The Li family's old house is located next to the ruins of the countryside. Most of the walls have collapsed. The moonlight shines on the ruins. The ancient well in the distance emits a low echo, as if it is warning outsiders. Enter in a low profile, Su Feng whispered, leading the climb over the wall with steps as light as a cat. The entrance to the basement is under the tea pavilion in the backyard. The teapot mark in the diary corresponds to this place. Listen, there are insects chirping in the wind, which is normal. But the organization's monitoring may include drone patrols. Xinyi followed, her cell phone on silent, and the diary in her backpack made her feel panicked. They walked around the overgrown courtyard to the sloping tea pavilion. Su Feng squatted down and pushed away the soil, revealing a stone slab with a vague teapot pattern carved on the edge. Xiao Wei's clues, he murmured, traditional treasure hiding techniques are now used as evidence. The stone slab was lifted, and there was a dark ladder underneath. There was a damp musty smell mixed with rust in the air. Xinyi swallowed, and when she took the first step down, her legs became weak. The hallucination came again. Xiao Wei's face flashed across the stairwell, smiling palely. Sister, don't be afraid, I'll wait inside. She shook her head and followed Su Feng attentively. The basement is not big, with old bricks embedded in the walls and broken boxes piled in the corners. Xinyi's heartbeat quickened as the flashlight swept over her, a worn-out backpack, with several ID cards falling out. The names were unfamiliar, but the people in the photos had empty eyes, like the victims in a missing persons wanted order. Next to it, there is a stack of yellowed contracts with crooked signatures and the clause reads, temporary workers, transferred to coastal factories. Evidence, Xinyi whispered, picking up one piece, look at this, the date is 1 week before Xiao Wei disappeared. A serial conspiracy, from the smuggling of King Li's grudge to modern human trafficking. Chen Lao's transfer line used this basement to transfer. They used traditional ruins to cover up, and technology tracked the victim's mobile phone, a two-pronged approach. Su Feng came closer and analyzed with a frown, the motive is clear, money. The old family grudges are a cover, but it is actually a gang network that sells people to black factories or overseas. These ID cards confirm that at least a dozen missing people are missing. This is the hub. When Xiao Wei dug here, Chen Lao took action. Just as she was talking, Xinyi's phone vibrated. It was an encrypted message from Siyu. Xinyi, it's broken. I was coerced. The organization caught me and forced me to give you false information. The photo was a composite and Chen Lao was not there for the photo. They are testing your loyalty, don't believe everything I say. Run, there is an ambush in the basement. The message was followed by a location and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Xinyi turned pale and turned to Su Feng. Siyu, she was forced to provide fake photos? Question her. But why is she saying it now? Su Feng's eyes flashed, trap. The organization plays psychological warfare, combining traditional threats with technological manipulation. The motive is to divide us and make you doubt our allies. Let's go. Before he finished speaking, there were footsteps above his head, the stone slab was pushed away, and 3 black figures jumped down, swords flashing in their hands. One of the short and stocky guys shouted, Lin Xinyi, hand over the diary. The boss said, do you want to try what happened to your sister? The ambush was sudden, small but brutal. Xinyi retreated and hit the wall, feeling fear in her heart like a tide. Xiao Wei's hallucination reappeared, and she saw the bloody scene of her sister being dragged away. The violent scene is right in front of you, a black figure pounces on Su Feng, the knife cuts through the air and makes a hissing sound. Su Feng dodged sideways and activated his detective skills. He grabbed the iron bar on the ground and hit the opponent's knee with his backhand. The man screamed and fell to the ground. Another slashed with a knife. Su Feng lowered his body and swept Tang's legs, tripping him, and then stepped on his wrist. You gangsters, Chen Lao sent you? Are you saying that the motive is to silence the diary? Xinyi was not idle, she sprayed out self-defense mist, which blinded the third person, who covered his face and retreated. She rushed towards the ladder, but fear made her legs weak. Witnessing Su Feng's movements, blood spattered on the wall, making it glaringly red. This is not news, this is real news. The inner conflict is like a fire. On one side is the fear of retreat, and on the other side is the echo of Xiaowei's courage. She must grow and cannot let fear win. Xinyi, come up. Su Feng roared, knocking the last one unconscious with one punch. His shoulder was injured and cracked, and blood seeped out of his jacket. He pushed her to crawl first, and the two of them rushed out of the tea pavilion, the night wind blowing against their faces. The Black Shadow's accomplices were outside, and two motorcycles roared after him, their headlights glaring like wolves. The chase scene unfolds, and the climax is as fast as an arrow. Su Feng pulls Xinyi into the ruins jungle, tree branches slap his face, there are ancient stone steps under his feet, and the red dot of technological surveillance flashes in the distance, perhaps because of the drone lock. Their motive is testing, Su Feng analyzed as he ran, his voice breathless. Xiyu's false information forced us to come to the basement and kill them all. The organization's network includes not only Chen Laowu, but also a technology layer to monitor the surrounding areas of the ruins. Traditional traps are covered with modern skins. The sound of a motorcycle approached, and a bullet grazed the tree trunk. Xinyi screamed, her fear peaked, but she gritted her teeth and turned back. Su Feng, your skills saved us. But Xiyu. Is she a true ally or a pawn? We have to verify. Su Feng pulled her into the ruins of an ancient temple and hid behind a stone pillar. It's normal to question, but don't collapse. This is growth, Xinyi. From a reporter to a detective, when facing violence, you are no longer a bystander. The pursuers were approaching. Su Feng threw out a smoke bomb, a spare in his bag, the fog filled the air, the motorcycle lost control and hit a rock, and screams rang out. They took advantage of the chaos to sneak out and get back into the car, the engine roaring away. Xinyi leaned on her seat, panting, her heart churning. The fear was still there, but her determination was stronger, like steel. Xiaowei's shadow is no longer an illusion, but a motivation. The car parked in a safe place and Xinyi opened the diary. The middle page suddenly became loose and a sandwich slipped out. On it were encrypted symbols, a string of numbers and a map sketch, pointing to a larger network of ruins outside Qingyun. This points to the coastal transfer station, she murmured, the general hub of the organization. Xiyu's message may be a real warning. We have to dig deeper. The night wind blew, and in the mist, there seemed to be more eyes watching. The car was parked on a dirt road outside Qingyun city. The night wind carried the salty smell of the sea. Su Feng turned off the engine and the two of them leaned on the back of the chair, panting. Xinyi's hands were still shaking, but she forced herself to take a deep breath and stared at the laminated paper that slipped out of the diary. The symbols are like ancient tea sutra patterns, and the numbers are strung into longitudes and latitudes, pointing directly to the abandoned factory area in the northeast of the small town. That place was originally a textile factory in the last century, but is now abandoned as a ghost town, surrounded by ruins, traditional bricks and tiles mixed with rusty machinery. I heard that the disappearance case occurred from there. Coastal Transfer Station, Xinyi whispered, with the tenacity in her voice that had just crawled out of fear. Xiaowei's handwriting, this is not a random drawing. The ID card and contract in the basement confirm that the transfer hub is next to the factory. The organization used the ruins as a cover to lure people to the illegal factory. We have to go and find out. Xiyu's warning is true, and the fake photos are their smoke bombs to force us to distract ourselves. Su Feng rubbed the wound on his shoulder. The blood had dried, but his face was pale. It's risky, but the logic is right. Chen Laowu's transfer line is from the basement of the Li family's old house to the factory, and then to the sea. The traditional gangsters play family feuds, and now they have added technology to track them. The files may be hidden in the server of the old factory. I'll drive, and you look at the map. I'll be there in 2 hours. Bring my old gun, for self-defense, not for killing. Xinyi nodded, and something flashed through her mind. From the threatening phone calls in the library to the sword flashes in the basement, she was no longer the reporter who only wrote reports. Xiao Wei's courage is like the bitterness in tea, forcing her to swallow it and become stronger. The car was moving forward at a low speed, the fog was getting thicker, and the rural ruins on the roadside flashed by, and the stone lion's eyes shone in the moonlight, as if they were mocking their recklessness. 2 hours later, they stopped behind bushes outside the factory. The abandoned factory towered like a giant beast, the iron fence was broken, and there was a faint hum coming from inside, not the wind, but the generator. Su Feng took the lead, and the two of them crawled forward to avoid possible surveillance lights. Low-key, he whispered, the organization's spy patrols with drones. The symbol of the diary corresponds to the old archives room in the east wing of the main building. Xinyi's heartbeat was beating like a drum, but she took the initiative and scanned her surroundings intelligently. There were fresh footprints and cigarette butts in the soil, which confirmed that someone was moving. They climbed over the fence and slipped through the side door, the air smelling of motor oil and mildew. The corridor was dark, and the flashlight scanned the slogan on the wall, "Loyalty First," a traditional gang slogan, but it was posted on the rusty iron plate. The door to the east wing was locked, and Su Feng used a tool to pry it open. Inside was a temporary stronghold, the table was piled with documents, the computer screen was flashing, and an iron cabinet was locked in the corner, filled with folders. Missing records, Xinyi whispered, throwing herself at the file folder on the table. The paper is yellowed, but the content is fresh. There are more than a dozen victims on the list, ranging from Xiao Wei's colleagues to passers-by, with the words, "Transfer successful, reward received," next to it. A stack of photos shows the victims strapped into the back of a van, with a coastal dock in the background. The symbols on the mezzanine of the diary match the map here, the organization's network, recruiting people from the Qingyun ruins, transferring them to factories, and then selling them to the overseas black market. Su Feng guarded the door and glanced at the screen. Look at this, the surveillance log. The technology layer controls everything, GPS tags the victim's mobile phone, and traditional threats use anonymous letters to scare family members. Chen Laowu is just a middle-level person, and there are big fish above him. Xinyi grabbed a few key documents, a signature list with the names of small-town officials and the words, "Protection Fee, Official Cover," next to it. Her mind raced and she pieced it together. Gangsters not only trafficked people, but also controlled officials, disappeared cases were suppressed and not reported, family grudges were used as a cover, but were actually transactions of money and power. Evidence, she murmured, the "under the teapot," written by Xiao Wei in the diary is the starting point, and this is the center. Officials are involved in the case, explain why the police delayed. When Xiao Wei digs up here, Chen Laowu will silence him. As he was speaking, Su Feng suddenly froze. The filing cabinet has sensors, we are making too much noise. As soon as he finished speaking, the alarm sounded sharply, the red light flashed, and the entire stronghold was lit up like daylight. Footsteps rushed from the corridor, and shouts of death rang out, "Intruder! Capture them alive, the boss wants to ask about the diary." The escape broke out instantly. Xinyi stuffed the documents into her backpack, and Su Feng pulled her towards the back door, but 3 strong men were already blocking the door, waving iron pipes in their hands. One of them yelled, "Lin Xinyi, do you want to experience the fate of your sister? Hand it over." Violence flowed like a tide. She grabbed the iron rod on the ground and hit another man in the knee with a counterattack. The battle in the basement taught her not to retreat. Su Feng opened the way, and the gunfire suppressed the pursuers, but the bullets grazed the wall and sparks flew everywhere. His shoulder injury recurred, and his movement was half a beat slower. A black figure pounced on him, and the iron pipe hit his back. He groaned and fell to the ground. "Run," he yelled, pushed Xinyi away, rolled over and fought back, hitting the opponent's chin with his fist. Xinyi didn't run away. She turned around and pulled Su Feng up, together. "I can't leave you behind." At this moment, she turned from dependence to leadership, with an iron determination. Xiao Wei's torch must be passed on to her. They rushed out of the back door and got into the abandoned pipes inside the factory. The footsteps of the pursuers roared on the iron plates. Outside, the motorcycle engine roared, and the headlights glared at them. Su Feng panted and said while running, "Xinyi, I have to tell you, my secret. I used to be in the organization. 10 years ago, I helped them run the transfer route and pull people from the ruins to the coast. The betrayal was because I saw clearly that money is dirty, and life is even dirtier. I killed a leader and lived in seclusion as a detective to hide from debts. But Xiao Wei's case brought up old scores and they targeted me." Xinyi was stunned for a moment, but she didn't stop. "Why do you say it now?" The inner conflict was like a knife, a test of trust, but the number of times he saved her proved his sincerity. "Because you have changed," Su Feng gasped, while firing to force the motorcycle back. "From fear to initiative, you are like I didn't do back then. You can't hide it anymore. The organization's informants are all over the world, and I am your weakness. But maybe you can use old relationships to dig out insiders." At the end of the pipe, they jumped out and ran to the ruins jungle on the edge of the factory. The pursuers were approaching, and the bullets grazed the tree trunks. Xinyi pulled Su Feng to hide beside the ancient well, and the soil splashed up. Psychological horror is shrouded like a shadow. The black water in the well reflects Xiao Wei's face, pale and whispering, "Sister, don't trust anyone." But she shook her head and focused on reality. Suddenly, a figure jumped out from behind the tree. "See you." She was holding a knife in her hand, her face was pale, and her clothes were stained with blood. "This way," she shouted, pulling them into a hidden path. "I followed you and slipped out of the safe house. The encrypted message was true, and they forced me to fake the photo, but I was a double agent, giving intelligence to the organization on the surface, but actually helping the police to keep track of the situation. After the cafe was smashed, I decided to go all in on your side. But they caught me, Xiao Wei's old colleague. I saved one, and I owe them a favor." Before she could finish her words, a bullet hit her shoulder. She fell to the ground with a groan, blood staining the soil red. Xinyi rushed forward and tore off the bandage. "See you, why didn't you tell me earlier? Trust, we should have been together." Siyu's face twisted in pain and her voice trembled. Afraid of incriminating you. In college, you always laughed at me for gossiping. Now, this gossip is life. Organizing and controlling officials, I heard the deal between Chen Laowu and the mayor, reporting the disappearance case in exchange for protection. Dual identities, painful as hell, waking up every day is like walking on the edge of a knife. Help me, Xinyi, expose them. I've had enough of this damn life." Her confession was like a psychological bomb, mixed with Siyu's tears, which strengthened the team's tension. Su Feng helped her up. "Hold on, the car is in front. Your information saved us." Xinyi took the initiative to take over the leadership. "Siyu, hold on." The files confirmed that the officials were involved in the case, the diary and the list were put together, and the gang network was about to be exposed. "We don't run away, we will fight back." She helped Siyu get into the car. Su Feng started the engine, and the motorcycle chased after her, but she calmly commanded, "Turn left, Ruins Road, flick your tail." The car sped wildly, shook off the pursuers, and stopped in a safe forest. Xinyi opened the file and compared it with the diary. The symbols were unlocked, pointing to the final hub, the coastal black market. The official signature clearly stated that the motive was power and money. The gang used traditional grievances and technological networks to control the small town like everything in the palm of their hand. The sky was slightly bright, and Siyu leaned on her seat and gasped, "Thanks, but they won't stop." "Look, your bag." Xinyi lowered her head, and an anonymous letter slipped out of the file, with fresh ink. "Lin Xinyi, the game is over. See the real seal along the coast, or the three of them will be buried together." Threats were like knives, foreshadowing a bigger storm, but her eyes lit up and her determination was like steel. The car drove towards the morning mist. Their road was still long. The morning mist was like a gauze, wrapping the car as it moved forward slowly. The outline of Qingyun City gradually blurred in the rearview mirror. Xinyi held the new anonymous letter. The ink was not completely dry yet, and the handwriting was crooked like a ghost's handwriting. Lin Xinyi, the game is over. See the real letter along the coast, or the three of them will be buried together. Her fingers turned white, and her head was buzzing. Last night's escape was like a nightmare. Although the file was captured, it was just the tip of the iceberg. The official signatures were blurred, the list was missing a leader, and the evidence chain was broken. The investigation was stuck at a bottleneck, and she began to doubt Xiao Wei's diary. Are those symbols a trap for the organization? Did Xiao Wei really dig that deep, or was she just a pawn being used? Don't stare at it. Su Feng glanced at her from the driver's seat, his voice hoarse and tired. The letter is a psychological warfare, to scare us to stop. The file matches the diary, and coastal transit is the key. But you have to take a breath, Xinyi, otherwise we will all fall. Xinyi shook her head, stuffed the letter into her bag, and turned to look at Siyu in the back seat. She was leaning against the back of the chair, her shoulders wrapped in temporary bandages. Her face was as pale as paper, but there was stubbornness in her eyes. Siyu, can you hold on? We have to find a place to stay and deal with your injuries first. Siyu forced a smile and inhaled in pain. What are you holding on for? I'm the best at pretending in my life. Let's park at Lao Li Tu's farmhouse. It's remote and I used it when I was hiding goods. There are painkillers in the medicine box, so don't make a fuss. She paused and lowered her voice. Actually, I have a new love. Report. Recover. Just lie down for 2 days. The leader of the organization is not a small role like Chen Laowu. He is the illegitimate son of the old man in the city. He is actually the one who controls everything. The family feud started from his grandfather's generation. Su Feng frowned and the car turned onto the dirt road. Li family? It was mentioned in the diary that the old house next to the Qingyun ruins is the ancestral grave of the Li family. Siyu, how do you know? Is there a double agent thread? That's what I heard. Siyu gritted her teeth and adjusted her sitting posture. After the cafe was smashed, I pretended to be submissive and sneaked into their tea party. Li Zetian loved to brag about his family history, saying that his grandfather was betrayed by the family in the last century and betrayed the tea smuggling line, which led to the creation of an underground organization. The source of the grudge is under the cemetery, and there are old things hidden to prove everything. I originally wanted to go it alone, but now, they are targeting me. The pursuers last night yelled my name. Xinyi's heart sank, and the continuous anonymous letters were like an invisible net, tightening tighter and tighter. She had more serious thoughts about questioning the diary. Xiao Wei's handwriting was authentic, but the symbols were so complicated. What if it was Li Zetian's deliberate bait? But she swallowed her fear and forced herself to think about it. The bottleneck is the bottleneck, we can't stop. Siyu, your intelligence is the breakthrough. Return to the ruins and dig up things under the cemetery. Su Feng, are you familiar with that area? Su Feng nodded, a shadow flashing in his eyes. It's familiar, too familiar. When I started running, I started from the Li family graveyard. There is a secret passage in the cemetery, leading to the old tea cellar. In the past, I helped them bury dirty things. Now, I have to dig them out to atone for my sins. There was a bitterness in his voice, and veins popped out in the hand holding the steering wheel. Xinyi saw it and felt warm in her heart. After he revealed his secret, he became more real, like a comrade who had shed his burden. The farmhouse arrived, a low adobe house hidden behind a bamboo forest. Siyu's legs were weak when she got out of the car. Xinyi helped her into the house. Su Feng made a fire and cooked a bowl of ginger soup, a traditional folk remedy to warm the body and ward off the cold. Drink, he handed it over. Don't be brave. You are our spy, how can you fight back if you can't hold on? Siyu took it, took a sip, and blushed on her face. Counterattack? It sounds like a martial arts novel. But okay, Li Zetian thought I was still online. I sent a false message last night to delay them. He will be anxious if the leader's identity is exposed. But be careful, there is a mechanism in the cemetery, I have heard of it. As night fell, the three of them simply bandaged their wounds and drove to the ruins. The rural road is full of potholes, and the moonlight shines on the stone monuments on the roadside, like an ancient wake. Xinyi was sitting in the passenger seat, her mind racing. The fear was still there, but she had learned to transform it into vigilance. The reporter's true colors are back, not hiding behind a keyboard, but digging for the truth with their own hands. The entrance to the cemetery is a barren forest, overgrown with weeds and vaguely phosphorescent like foxfire. Su Feng stopped the car and whispered, "Keep a low profile and don't step on dead branches." The Li family tomb is in the center, and the stone statues of the ancestral tombs are guarding it. Siyu, sit in the car and monitor the surrounding area. Xinyi and I will go in. No, Siyu shook her head and insisted on following up, I recover quickly. I gave you the information. You can't use it as a slut. She took out her mobile phone from her bag and opened an app. This is a detector bought on the black market. It is used to sweep agencies and monitor. Team action, okay. Xinyi nodded and patted her shoulder, okay, let's go together. Su Feng, lead the way. They crawled forward, and the air smelled of earth and old incense. In the center of the cemetery, the ancestral tomb of the Li family stands tall, with the stone lion's mouth slightly open, as if whispering a secret. The surrounding graves are covered with wild flowers, and the wind blows, making a rustling sound like a ghost weeping. The suspenseful atmosphere filled the air like a fog, sending chills down Xinyi's spine, and every step felt like stepping on the tip of a knife. But she took a deep breath and took the initiative to scan. Look, there, the soil beside the main grave is loose and has been newly turned. Su Feng knelt down and dug with a small shovel, and the soil spattered. Yes, the diary symbol corresponds to this location. I buried things back then, right here. His movements were stiff, and old scenes flashed through his mind, the bloody transfer, the cry of the victim. The fire of atonement burned his heart, so he speeded up. Dig deeper, there is an iron box at the bottom. The shovel made a muffled sound when it hit something hard. Siyu came closer and used the light of her mobile phone to shine. Be careful, it's a trap. As she finished speaking, the ground trembled slightly, and a stone slab turned up, revealing the entrance to the secret passage. It was dark inside, and the ladder led straight to the ground. Su Feng exits first, Xinyi comes second, and Siyu comes behind. The three of them held hands and walked into the humid tea cellar. The walls were covered with ancient runes, like a replica of a diary. This is the tea smuggling cellar of the last century, Su Feng whispered, his voice echoing, where the Li family's grandfather hid his goods. They groped forward, stepping on broken bricks, and the air was as muggy as a tomb. Suddenly, Xinyi's flashlight glanced at a corner, a rusty iron box, half buried in the soil. She picked it up, wiped the dust, and stuffed it with yellowed paper. Letter, she whispered, unfolding one, from within the Li family, written to brothers. Father Zhe, you betrayed me, the tea line was broken, and the family was destroyed. I swear, the organization will be reborn from the grave, and the grudges will last for centuries. The handwriting was scrawled and stained with ink, and the date was the late Republic of China. Xinyi read, her heart beating faster. The source of the betrayal, Li Zetian's great-grandfather, was sold to the government by his brothers. The tea smuggling case was exposed, and the whole family ransacked their homes. This grudge evolved into an underground organization, recruiting people for trafficking, and controlling the town. The historical letter connects the modern era. Li Zetian used his ancestral graves as a stronghold to threaten his family members and continue the blood debt. Su Feng's face turned pale under the light. He squatted down and his voice trembled. I helped him bury the evidence back then, right here in this cellar. Atonement, I understand now. It's not money, it's a life debt. I thought seclusion would be enough, but Xiaowei's case is like a mirror that reflects my bad debts. He clenched his fists, his eyes red. Xinyi, thank you for not abandoning me. From now on, I'm all here. Xinyi nodded, feeling warm in her heart. the fear did not disappear, but she overcame it and became the fuel for action. We are all the same. See you. This letter is irrefutable evidence of the official's motive for being involved in the case. Li Zetian used grudges to kidnap powerful people in exchange for protection. As she was talking, Siyu's cell phone rang an alarm. No. Heat source detected. Someone is coming at 3 o'clock. Chase me. They deciphered my false message. Li Zetian personally ordered it. The sound of footsteps came from the entrance of the secret passage, as dull as a drum. It was not a wild chase, but a planned-out flank. 2 black figures descended from the ladder, flashing electric batons in their hands, and blocked the exit on the other side. See you can't run away, the leader yelled. The leader said to capture her alive and find out the inside story. The 3 of them stood back to back and joined forces to fight back. Su Feng pounced on him and knocked down one of them in close combat. He changed hands with the iron rod and said, "Here comes the old trick." He used his past experience to choke and suppress, and the anger of atonement made him as strong as a tiger. Xinyi grabbed a broken brick on the ground and hit another person's knee. The reporter's alertness turned to fighting instinct. Don't touch her. She protected Siyu and sprayed out self-defense spray, blinding the other person's sight. Siyu was not idle. She took out the knife from her waist and cut open the leader's arm. Go to hell, Li Zetian's dog. The pain made her move fiercely, and the pain of her dual identity exploded into a counterattack. The 3 of them cooperated tacitly, not running around, but outsmarting them. Su Feng kicked over the ladder and blocked the reinforcements. Xinyi lit a fire with a letter, filling the cellar with smoke. Siyu commanded, "The weak point on the left side, the electric baton battery is at the waist." During the melee, they forced back the intruders. Before fleeing, the leader said, "The leader knows the diary, and I will wait for you to surrender to the trap along the coast." The smoke cleared, and the 3 of them gasped and leaned against the wall. Xinyi's arm was bruised, but she smiled. "We win this time. Let's grow up." Back in the car, Siyu bandaged the new injury, and Su Feng drove away from the cemetery. Xinyi opened the diary and compared it with the historical letters. The symbols overlapped, like a puzzle. She ran her fingers across the page, her mind racing. Look, this part of the code, the T-book pattern, is converted into coordinates. It's cracked. The organization's missing network map, from ruins to factories to coastal black markets, is all connected. Li Zetian's stronghold is underground at the tea house in the east of the city. The map was spread out in my lap, its lines like a spider's web pointing toward the ultimate climax. Su Feng glanced. Next step, the coast. But rest first, the leader is anxious, we have an advantage. Siyu nodded, her eyes lit up. Yes, the counterattack begins. The car drove into the night, and the storm hidden in the mist was about to erupt. The car bumped forward in the night, the fog wrapped around the tires like a ghost. The lights in Xinyi city gradually became sparse, leaving only scattered farm lanterns swaying on the roadside. Xinyi held the makeshift map tightly. The lines were winding from the ruins to the tea house in the east of the city, and the puzzle in her mind was still turning. Li Zetian's stronghold is hidden underground where the fragrance of tea overflows. She glanced at the rearview mirror. Siyu leaned against the back of the chair and panted, blood oozing from the bandage on her shoulder. Su Feng's face was uncertain under the instrument light, and his fingers tapped on the steering wheel, as if suppressing the shadow of the past. There will be a tea party at the tea house tomorrow. Su Feng broke the silence, his voice as low as thunder. Li Zetian loves the traditional trick of talking about business on the surface and making connections underneath. The organized party is right there. We can't force our way into it, we have to outweed it. Xinyi, you are a good reporter, pretending to be an interviewer, sneaking in and listening to the news. I'm taking care of it outside. Siyu, are you still there? Siyu opened her eyes and forced a smile. Yes, the fake message I sent last night made them think I was still obedient. When Li Zetian was showing off at the tea party, I could send some gossip remotely. But when there is internal fighting, my identity becomes a target. Xinyi, be careful, those old foxes have sharp eyes, and the poison in the teacup is faster than a bullet. Xinyi nodded, her heart sinking. pretending to be a reporter. She was originally in this industry, but now she is not typing on the keyboard, but infiltrating with live ammunition. Moral thorns pierced in, deceiving people to get in. What if innocent people were harmed? But Xiao Wei's shadow flashed in my mind, and the handwriting in the diary seemed to be urging me. I couldn't stop. She took a deep breath and transformed her fear. Okay, I'll go. Su Feng, keep an eye on the exit. See you, give me the inside route. The team works together to dig out irrefutable evidence this time. The night in the farmhouse was as short as a dream. In the early morning, the sun shines through the window. Xinyi puts on a simple shirt and jeans, carries a bag full of notebooks, and looks like an ordinary city reporter in the mirror. But the inner monologue surged like a flood. Is this the right move? If exposed, not only himself, but also Su Feng's atonement and Siyu's betrayal would be implicated. Everything is wrong, Xiao Wei's truth will be buried forever. But she gritted her teeth. Growth is not about avoiding, it is about taking the initiative to hold the knife. As the core, she has to make a decision. The tea house in the east of the city is located by the river. It has an antique look with green bricks and black tiles. There is a plaque reading, Zetian Tea House, hanging on the door, and the air is filled with the fragrance of pu'er. The tea party has started, and the guests are in twos and threes, wearing suits or tang suits, laughing and chatting noisily. Xinyi took a deep breath, adjusted her expression, and walked towards the doorman. Hello, I am Lin Xinyi from Qingyun Daily. I heard that there is a tea culture exchange today and I am here to interview Mr. Li. The guard glanced at her and scanned the ID. She had printed it under a false name last night. It was rough but passable. Mr. Li is in the back hall. Go in and don't take random pictures. She nodded and stepped in steadily, her heart beating like a drum. The tea house hall is lively, with tea tables in a circle and waiters carrying bowls running errands. Xinyi found a corner to sit down, pretending to take notes, and listen to her surroundings with her ears raised. Not far away, a table of middle-aged men chatted in low voices, their voices as low as mosquitoes. Mr. Li, is this batch of goods stable? Is it transiting along the coast? Has the government taken the bait? Another man laughed, with a hoarse voice. Sure, the grudges are tied tightly. Who dares to say anything about those who are missing? With a tracker implanted, they can be seen clearly wherever they go. Technology plus tradition, our Li family's ancestral skills. Xinyi's hand shook, and the pen tip scratched the paper. Tracker. Plant a victim. The symbols of the diary flashed through my mind, and the lines looked like circuit diagrams. The moral dilemma came again. These people were human traffickers, and it sounded like she should call the police, but she had to endure it and dig deeper. An inner monologue emerged. Xiao Wei, where are you? What should I do if the goods they are talking about include you? Kill them? No, she suppressed her anger, stood up, pretended to pour tea, and approached the table. Ms. Lin, sit down, a fat man waved with ambiguous eyes. Mr. Li likes to meet reporters, come and try Tiguanyin. Xinyi sat down and responded with a smile. Thank you, I heard that Li's tea has a long history, and I wanted to ask for advice. She moved smartly and led them to speak. The fat man took a sip of tea and lowered his voice. It's been a long time. From my grandfather's generation, there are more secrets hidden under the tea leaves. The organizational structure is simple. Mr. Li, the leader, and the following layers: transit, monitoring, and cleanup. Missing people? It's not lost, it's transferred. Coastal factories have been transformed into prisons, so they can be used. Another person answered with a smile but a cold voice. Yes, alive. Like that little girl, who looks like a clerk. She dug out some diaries and kept them for the boss to ask for a confession. Sister. Her sister is still wandering around, and our tracker has been on it for a long time. Implanted in the arm, the GPS is accurate, and she can't run away. Xinyi's blood ran cold. Xiao Wei is alive. Imprisoned along the coast. But my heart was like a knife. It was confirmed, but it was like burning. On the verge of morality, she wanted to smash the cup and shout, but her rationality held her back. Endure it, wait until you finish eavesdropping. She lowered her head and pretended to record, and her mind was racing with reasoning. The organizational structure was like a pyramid, with Li Zetian at the top, and technological tracking was a modern shackle, connecting traditional grudges. The diary symbol may be Xiaowei's attempt to mark the tracker's location. Suddenly, the curtain in the back hall opened, and Li Zetian appeared. He was in his early 50s, tall and thin, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, and smiled like an old fox. Everyone, the tea party will continue. Reporter Lin. Welcome, come to the back hall to talk about family history. The lights in the back hall are dim, the aroma of tea is stronger, and several bodyguards guard the door. She sat down and Li Zetian handed him a cup of tea, from the daily newspaper. There has been a lot of missing persons cases recently. Do you have a cable? She held steady and probed tactfully. Mr. Li is well informed? The town is peaceful. The disappearance is probably an accident. He squinted his eyes, his smile not reaching his eyes. Accident? There are deep grievances, who knows? Outsiders should not interfere with the organization's affairs. There was a knife hidden in the words, Xinyi's inner monologue. Does he know me? In Xiaowei's diary, he mentioned organization as a threat. Peak moral dilemma, T. In case of drug use. But she took a sip and pretended to be innocent. Where is the family history? I heard that there are stories about the Li family's ancestral graves. Li Zetian leaned back and knocked on the table. Story? Betrayal started in the tomb, and now we use technology to guard our homes. The tracker is implanted, and the victim can never run away. Your sister's friend, Xiaowei, is still panting on the coast, waiting. He deliberately leaked it to test her. Xinyi clenched her fists, and the flame of growth started. Don't panic, she is the decision-maker. He stood up and said with a fake smile, Thank you, Mr. Li, that's enough material. When he turned around, he saw a folder under the table labeled, Member Roster. Opportunity. She bent down and pretended to pick up the pen, swept her sleeves away, picked up the clip and stuffed it into her bag. Heartbeat, stealing. It's borderline criminal. But for Xiaowei, it's worth it. After rushing out of the back hall, the hall was in chaos. Someone shouted, there is something going on outside. Outside, Su Feng was hiding in a truck in the back alley of the tea house, watching the exit, holding a walkie-talkie in his hand. Siyu's message just came, Xinyi, the small door on the east side, the inner line is open. But be careful, there is an infighting on my side. Li Zetian suspected me and sent someone to clear out the evildoer. Su Feng frowned and replied, Hold on, I will pick her up. Suddenly, a black car stopped, a few strong men got out of the car, and one of them turned around. Su Feng? Old man, are you still alive? Old acquaintance. Su Feng's heart sank. That was a Chang, who had been running together in the past, and his face was livid when he recognized him. The boss said, You betrayed? Catch him alive. Su Feng pounced on him, and a fight broke out. He used his old tricks, choked and twisted, and the Chang fell to the ground. But when reinforcements came and clubs swung, his shoulder injury recurred and his sleeves were stained with blood. A secret conflict deepens, bad debts from the past pull him like shackles. An inner thought, atonement? Now it's survival. He growled, Tell Li Zetian that I will play the game to the end. The intercom rang, and Xinyi's voice said, Su Feng, East Gate. Hurry. He knocked down the last one and ran towards the small door. Siyu's inside line opened the way, but she herself was trapped in an internal fight. There were faint gunshots in the tea house, and she sent a message, I'll hold them back, and the route will go straight to the bridge by the river. Got the list? Run. Xinyi rushed out, and the list in her bag was hot. A list of organization members, more than a dozen names, from the middle level to the coastal prison guards, pointing to the final confrontation. Li Zetian's circle of confidants, all here. The trust of the team was as strong as iron. She shouted, Su Feng, this way. See you, thank you. Su Feng picked up and the three of them met. Xinyi rushed out from the side door, with a fresh cut on her arm, her face turned pale, the internal fighting broke out, Li Zetian killed him, and I was exposed. But the route is right, there is a boat by the river. They ran towards the river, their footsteps cluttered in the mud, and the shouts of the pursuers behind them were like howling wolves. Xinyi took the lead and made a smart decision, get on the boat and go straight to the farmhouse upstream. The list has the coastal coordinates, and Xiao Wei is there. Su Feng gasped and patted her shoulder, you have grown up, Xinyi. You are not a follower, but a leader. Xinyi nodded and smiled reluctantly, yes, the team depends on you. There is a solution to the tracker problem on the list, black market doctors can dismantle it. The boat untied, the river lapped against the shore, and they slipped into darkness. The list is in hand, the storm is approaching, but the fire of growth is lit. The river is filled with mist, and the next hidden shadow is about to emerge. The river mist enveloped the boat like a white veil, and the engine roared, pushing them upstream. Xinyi curled up in the stern of the boat, the list and diary in her bag were tightly packed, and the sound of the river water could not cover her heartbeat. Su Feng was at the helm, his face stained with blood, and his shoulder injury made him frown every time he turned the steering wheel. Xinyi leaned against the side of the ship, the new wound on her arm aching faintly in the night wind. She gritted her teeth and held on without saying a word. The three of them silently agreed not to speak. The shouts of the pursuers behind them gradually faded away, but the shadow was still lingering in their minds. The farmhouse is almost here, Su Feng finally spoke, his voice hoarse. Take a breath first and analyze the list. The coordinates of those bastards and the coastal prison are irrefutable evidence, but we have to piece together the complete picture. She turned to look at Xinyi, hold on, the internal line saved us. Don't be brave next time. Xinyi forced a smile, at my age, why are you trying to be brave? For the sake of both of you, this is worth the damage. When the boat docked, they went ashore in the dark and slipped back to the farmhouse hidden in the woods. As soon as the door is closed, the oil lamp is lit, and the list, diary and temporary map are spread out on the table. The air was mixed with the smell of earth and blood. Xinyi took a deep breath and opened the window to let in the night breeze. Come on, start over. There are more than a dozen names on the list, those in the middle are in charge of transfers, and those in the bottom are under surveillance. On top of Li Zhe's skyline, the coast is the terminal. But I didn't read the second half of the diary carefully last night, there are patterns hidden in Xiao Wei's handwriting. She opened the diary, and the yellowed pages looked like ancient scrolls under the lamp. The contrast between the traditional ink stains and the modern technological conspiracies made people shiver down their spines. Xinyi came closer and pointed at the lines with trembling arms. Look here, the symbols look like tunnel diagrams. They were not drawn casually. Xiao Wei was a clerk and loved to draw flow charts. The serial disappearances started from the ruins of the small town, first arresting people, implanting trackers, and then transporting them to coastal factories through underground tunnels. Traditional grudges are a cover, gangsters use secret passages in ancestral graves as passages, and modern GPS locks the escape route. Su Feng nodded and rubbed his shoulders, yes, my old acquaintance Aqiang mentioned it. There is a net under the Li family's ancestral tomb, connecting the tea house in the east of the city and the ruins by the river. The missing people are not littered, but an assembly line, rural children, city clerks, like Xiao Wei who dig up secrets, all become goods. This number on the list is a black market doctor who specializes in implants, that one is a tunnel guard. The pattern is complete, catch, transport and sell, one link at a time. Xinyi's mind was racing, and the reasoning in the conversation was like a jigsaw puzzle. Xiao Wei's diary is a traditional window, with ink recording grudges, and symbols breaking the shackles of technology. Her stay here is not casual, it is a letter for help. The coastal coordinates are on the last page of the list, and the factory has been converted into a prison, but the leader Li Zetian is not. If you go there in person, you must have a center. The tunnel network is the key. If you block the transportation line, you can break it. She paused and said firmly, we can't wait. We have to raid the abandoned warehouse in the north of the city to rescue the leader. Siyu frowned and her voice was painful. Warehouse. There are many guards there. I can open the way from the inside, but after being exposed, hey, I'm going to risk it all. Xinyi, you take the lead, Su Feng and I will flank. Su Feng patted the table, okay, but be careful. Then these tunnels, traditional ghost gates and modern surveillance, will lead to failure if you take the wrong step. The three looked at each other, and the team's tacit understanding was like iron. Xinyi's persistence turned into tenacity at this moment. She was no longer fighting alone, she was the core, and she was as decisive as a knife. At dawn, they put on dark clothes and carried tools, flashlights, ropes, and Siyu's old detector. The abandoned warehouse in the north of the city is hidden in the fog. The iron gate is rusty and surrounded by weeds, like an extension of the ruins of the small town. Xinyi whispered, Siyu, a fake message was sent. Let them think it was a routine inspection. Siyu nodded, and the screen of her mobile phone flashed. It was sent. The guard was relaxed for 5 minutes. I will touch the breach on the east side first. She slipped into the grass, her figure was like a ghost, and her arm injury slowed her movements for half a beat. Su Feng and Xinyi sneaked against the wall, their hearts beating in their throats. The lights in the warehouse were dim, and several strong men were smoking and chatting. This batch of goods is stable, and the tunnel leads directly to the coast. Mr. Li said that if grievances are not repaid, the family business will be ruined. She clenched her fists, feeling a surge of psychological pressure. If she failed, more diaries would be buried forever. Suddenly, Siyu's signal came. 2 people have been cleared inside, and the rescue room is to the south. But the alarm is ringing. A melee broke out, the guards roared and waved their sticks. Su Feng pounced on him, and the first strong man fell to the ground. He locked his throat and growled, I'm back, tell Li Zetian. Siyu delayed from the flank, and the false message turned into a real gun, the inner ghost. Block the east gate. But a guard recognized her, and the sword flashed, bitch, betray Mr. Li. Siyu dodged, was stabbed in the arm, seriously injured and fell to the ground, blood stained the ground. Siyu. Xinyi shouted, rushing to block, fighting back and kicking the enemy away. Su Feng knocked down the last 2, and the 3 of them worked together to break open the south iron gate. Inside was a small room, with a middle-aged woman shackled in chains. Her face was pale and there were faint scars on her arms, traces of implanted trackers. Save me, the woman gasped, her voice trembling, I am a teacher. When I was arrested, they said that the grudges started from the ancestral graves, and now the tunnel transports me to the coast to sell my organs. The diary. I have seen similar ones, left by the victims, and the pattern is cycle, missing, implanted, transported away. Li Zetian's hiding place is deep in the ancestral graves, the end of the tunnel. The victim's story was like a knife, and the psychological pressure peaked. Xinyi hugged her and listened to the details. Traditional diaries record grievances, modern gangs use tunnel networks to expand, and the missing people are not accidents, but links in the chain. The woman cried, my daughter is also lost. Just like your sister, she will catch you when she digs out secrets. Save me, please. Xinyi's eyes were hot, and her tenacity surged. Hold on, let's break it up. She unlocked the chain. Su Feng carried the woman on his back, and Siyu reluctantly climbed up. Hurry up, reinforcements are coming. During the retreat, his old acquaintance Aqiang led people to block the door. He glared at Su Feng, traitor. You killed Xiao Lu just to escape. Mr. Li said that you led the organization to arrest people, and the missing person Xiao Lu died in the tunnel, and you pushed it to internal fighting. The secret was exposed like thunder, and Su Feng turned pale and stopped. Shut up. That was an accident. I regretted it and came back to atone for my sins. Team rift? Internal monologue, trust broken. But seeing the pain in Su Feng's eyes and Siyu's blood, she gritted her teeth and said, what happened in the past is now proven. Saving people comes first. Su Feng nodded and growled, Yes, I owe you what I owe now. Unity was restored, and the three of them rushed out to protect the woman. Gunshots rang out, and the rope was thrown over the wall. Back at the farmhouse, after bandaging, the woman gasped and pointed at the map, deep in the ancestral tomb, the tunnel convergence point. Li Zetian is there, controlling the entire network. Xinyi lay on the bed, her wounds sutured, her face as white as paper. Xinyi, it's locked. Let's fight. Su Feng rubbed his shoulders, his eyes firm. The team works together to atone to the end. The mist wrapped around the path like a ghost from the ancestor's grave. Xinyi opened the door of the farmhouse, and the night wind blew into her face with the smell of earth. The female teacher was wrapped in a blanket and curled up in the corner, her eyes still filled with the shock of having just escaped from danger. Xinyi was lying on the bed, her arms wrapped with temporary bandages, her face was pale but she insisted with gritted teeth, "Xinyi, leave me alone, we can't wait at the ancestral graves. I have backup information, and I can hold on for a while." Su Feng rubbed his shoulders, feeling the pain of his old injury. He glanced at the map, the team is here, and the atonement starts from now. "Xinyi, what do you say?" Xinyi took a deep breath, and Xiaowei's diary flashed through her mind. The symbols were like tunnel veins, connecting grudges and modern shackles. She is no longer a single-handed reporter, but is now the leader. She nodded. Go straight to the entrance of the ancestral graves, the deep meeting point mentioned by the female teacher. There is a pattern on the back page of the diary. The tunnel is divided into 3 levels, the upper level guards, the middle level prison, and the lower level leader's den. "See you open the way inside, Su Feng, neutralize the ambush, I will retreat and look for Xiaowei's traces. Priority is given to rescuing people, but Li Zetian has to capture them alive and expose them to the whole city." Her voice was as steady as a rock, and her persistence turned into determination. The team's eyes lit up, and they had a tacit understanding like an iron chain. They drove an old jeep, with the lights lowered, and bumped along the country road toward the ruins east of the city. The car was so quiet that only the hum of the engine was left. The female teacher added in a low voice, "My daughter is there, like Xiaowei, implanted with things and forced to work." The grudges started from the ancestral graves of the Li family. Generations of people hid corpses and transported goods. Now the gangs use high technology to lock them up. She turned to Xinyi, "You have sacrificed enough, don't bear it this time." Xinyi forced a smile, "Old sisters, it's worth the risk. I sold some fake goods to the insider to make them relax for half an hour." The entrance to the ancestral tomb is hidden behind the tea garden. The stone monument is tilted and wild vines are entangled, like a traditional gatekeeper in a small town. Under the moonlight, in the gloomy mist, Su Feng took the lead in groping for the iron gate. "Old place, I am familiar with this secret passage. Back then, forget it. Be careful, there is an infrared network on the first floor." They climbed over the wall and entered, their steps as light as cats. Xiyu's cell phone buzzed, false alarm, message from the insider, saying that there will be an external assault and the guards will be diverted. Sure enough, after receiving the message, the 2 strong men at the entrance muttered, "Mr. Li's order, stabilize the coast first, and only half of the people in the ancestral graves will be left." They slipped away, leaving a gap for the team to get into the tunnel. The tunnel is humid and hot, and the moss on the walls smells musty. The flashlight beam sweeps through, revealing ancient masonry and modern pipelines. Xinyi whispered, "The diary symbols match up. This corner is the middle-level prison." Xiaowei's handwriting circled a room and said, "Brainwashing room." As soon as she finished speaking, there was a click under her feet, and the trap was triggered. The iron net fell from the top. Su Feng, with quick eyesight and quick hands, grabbed Xinyi and threw out the rope hook with the other hand to jam the edge of the net. It's an old trick. Gangsters like to use the ancestral grave mechanism to power up the net. Dodge left. The old wound on his shoulder split open and blood seeped through his clothes, but he gritted his teeth and resolved it, and the team squeezed through the narrow gap. Xinyi gasped, "Su Feng, your experience is worth it." I will push further from inside and send a message to the middle-level guards to summon the leader. The middle-level prison was like a maze, lined with iron cages, with more than a dozen figures locked inside, their pale faces swaying in the light. The guards were in groups, smoking and chatting. This batch of goods is good, and the coastal factories are waiting for it. Mr. Li said that it is up to us to continue the feud in this small town, and the missing people assembly line cannot be stopped. Xinyi was heartbroken. These are not goods, but people, like the daughter of a female teacher. She whispered to Su Feng, disperse, break the rescue room first. Su Feng nodded, sneaked on the flank, and whispered to a guard in the old organization code, brother, the insider said that Mr. Li has changed his shift. You go to the east entrance. The guard was suspicious, but still walked away, revealing the flaw. Siyu stepped forward despite the pain, the wound on her arm was bleeding, and she growled, in order to break through, I sold some real information, Li Zetian's weaknesses, old grudge files. But in exchange, they had civil strife and a 5-minute melee. Sure enough, a dispute broke out among the guards. Who is the spy? Mr. Li's diary is lost. The team took advantage of the chaos and rushed into the rescue room. The first cage was opened and a young girl jumped out, sister. I thought it was over. They implanted the tracker and forced us to transport the goods. She turned around and commanded, Su Feng, the 3 cages on the left, Siyu, turn off the alarm on the right. Fighting breaks out, with sticks and fists flying. Su Feng threw down 2 guards, fighting like a wolf, tell Li Zetian, atonement is coming. But an ambushed swordsman sprang out from the darkness and slashed his arm. The new wound was filled with blood. He groaned and fell to the ground, but still locked on the enemy. Xinyi, hurry. Diary clues, lower level. Siyu delayed the internal fight, pretending to be a traitor and shouted, Mr. Li betrayed us, the files prove it. The guards killed each other, and a breakthrough was opened. Xinyi helped Su Feng up, feeling a pain in her heart. He was seriously injured at the price, and he was the backbone of the team. She had a short inner monologue, no more doubts, he is a true comrade in arms. The lower level is deeper, the air is filled with the smell of medicine, the secret base is like an underground fortress, and the surveillance screen flashes, showing pictures of coastal factories. Leader Li Zetian sits in the center of the town. He is in his early 50s and has a haggard face. Next to him is a glass room. Inside, Xiao Wei is curled up, her eyes are empty, and she is mumbling and repeating the organization's slogans. Xinyi rushed forward, the glass door was locked, she smashed the door and shouted, Xiao Wei. It's me, sister is here. But Xiao Wei raised her head, her eyes were like a stranger, grand grudge, continue my life, you are also a loser. The illusion struck, and the image of Xiao Wei being brainwashed flashed in Xinyi's mind, the diary ink was twisted into chains, and traditional grievances turned into psychological shackles. Her legs were weak and she was struggling internally, is this a trap? Does my sister still recognize me? Fear and despair intertwined, and the psychological horror peaked. She bit her lip, she can't fall, from tracing to rescue, I have to pull her back. Li Zetian stood up with a sneer, and the guards around him swarmed up, little girl, are you chasing the ancestral grave? The gang has controlled the town for 20 years. Ever since the Li family feud, we have used tunnel networks to arrest clerks and sell organs, and technology has locked everything up. Diary? That's the victim's struggle, it's useless. He revealing secrets like a knife. Missing people are not arrested randomly, but are selected to dig up secrets, like your sister, like that teacher's daughter. The whole city is on the net, and the police are collecting money. She caught a glimpse of the deputy beside Li Zetian with his eyes evasive, you. The internal traitor, the symbol of the diary circle, against you. In a sudden turn of events, the deputy drew his gun and turned back, that's enough, Mr. Li. I've endured enough when you sold my family. The files are with me, all exposed. Chaos broke out, and the traitors opened fire and knocked down 2 guards. Siyu endured the pain and rushed forward, turning off the surveillance camera, the last blow on the inside line, disconnect along the coast. Su Feng got up, his minor injury was not a problem, he locked Li Zetian, old debt, settled. Xinyi smashed open the glass, hugged Xiaowei, sister, wake up. Diary. You have the courage to save us. Xiaowei's eyes became clear and tears fell, sister, they brainwashed me, I'm afraid that they will implicate you. But the evidence is in the files, destroy them. The team worked together to rescue the 5 lower-level victims: clerks, teachers, and rural children, all of whom were missing in the chain. The daughter of a female teacher reunited with her mother, and her cries echoed through the tunnel. Li Zetian was kidnapped and cursed, the town belongs to us, and the grudges will last forever. But the traitor handed over the files, which proved the entire gang network, from ancestral graves to the coast, 20 years of shadow. Xinyi looked at the victims supporting each other, and she felt perseverance in her heart, she changed from a reporter to a savior. The exposure was not stopped, but the rescue was completed. Su Feng covered his arms, his sleeves were stained with blood, but he smiled, boss, it's worth it. Slight injury, all network disconnection. Siyu leaned against the wall and gasped, the team has won, next step, the police. They dragged the captives and evacuated along the tunnel. Outside the ancestral tombstone monument, the sky was slightly bright, the storm was about to disperse, but the secret of the small town still needed one last fight. The white fish belly on the horizon has not completely dispersed. Outside the stone tablets of ancestral graves, the mist is slowly receding like a ghost in an old story about a small town. Xinyi supported Xiaowei and carried the female teacher's daughter on her shoulders. The team dragged the tied Li Zetian and staggered out of the tunnel. Su Feng pressed the wound on his arm with one hand, and held a gun in the other hand to guard. Siyu was behind the palace, and the bandage on her arm was stained red. She breathed heavily and whispered, hurry up, insiders say they have a backup plan, and the bastards along the coast may catch up. Li Zetian was tied up and had a piece of cloth stuffed in his mouth. He was still glaring at them fiercely, and his groaning sound was like the roar of a wild animal. Xinyi glanced at him, and her heart was churning. This old fox, from the ancestral grave of grudges to the modern black network, has been controlling the small town for 20 years, and now he has finally failed. But she knew the game was not over. The old jeep was parked by the tea garden, and the engine was still warm. She put Xiaowei into the back seat, and Xiaowei held her hand. Her voice was weak but firm, sister, the diary, on the last page, I hid something. The evidence can destroy their whole family. Where are you hiding? Xinyi asked as she drove. The steering wheel shook on the bumpy road. In the rearview mirror, there were faint lights flickering at the entrance to the ancestral tomb, the pursuers were coming. Su Feng turned from the passenger seat, Xiaowei, please make it clear. We have the files, but the police won't believe them all just by talking on paper. Li Zetian, the bastard, still has something in his hands. Xiaowei leaned on the seat, her face as pale as paper, and the shadow of brainwashing was still wandering in her eyes. She fumbled in her pocket and took out a crumpled old diary, it was the one that Xinyi had been tracking down all the way. The cover was covered with dirt. The last page, mezzanine. When I was imprisoned, I stole their things, a CD, the evidence of the crime recorded by the leader himself. The organ trade, the missing list, it's all in it. Sister, you have to hand it over to the police with your own hands. Xinyi's heart was shaken, and she flashed back every detail of the investigation in her mind, from the warning in the anonymous letter, to the symbols of the old house, from Siyu's cafe information, to Su Feng's story of old wounds. Along the way, she changed from a persistent reporter to a leader who leads the charge. The fear is still there, and the scene of losing Xiaowei reappears like a nightmare, but now, she grits her teeth, no one can be left behind again. A short inner monologue like lightning, growth is not about not being afraid, it is about rushing forward even if you are afraid. Give it to me. She reached for the diary and opened the last page while driving. Sure enough, a silver CD slipped out of the mezzanine, with the label, Li family continues to live, scrawled on it. Li Zetian struggled in the back seat, his eyes widened and he roared. Siyu took a closer look and smiled on her pale face. This thing is worth money. The insider said that the police are waiting in the east of the city, but there is an ambush on the road. I sent a message to mislead them, assuming that we are going south and we will meet along the coast. As soon as the car turned onto the country road, the engine sound came from behind. 3 black SUVs were chasing after them like ghosts, their lights dazzling. Su Feng cursed, "You damn boy, you're moving so fast. Xinyi, speed up. Siyu, can you hold up your arms?" Siyu nodded and reluctantly took out her cell phone from her bag. "Yes. Send a false clue, saying we broke down in the tea garden and asked them to divide their forces." She tapped her fingers quickly, and the message was sent, but her face became paler, the wound opened, and blood dripped down her arm to the seat. The pursuers were approaching, and the first SUV was lined up with its windows rolled down and the muzzle of its gun sticking out. The bullet grazed the back of the car, sparks flying. Xinyi turned the steering wheel fiercely, and the jeep slid sideways into a rice field and said, "Su Feng, fight back. Xiao Wei, hold the daughters tight." Su Feng leaned forward and fired, hitting the opponent's tire. The SUV rolled out, but the second vehicle hit it, and the impact caused the jeep to sway. Siyu shouted, "Turn left. That's a fake ambush. I've confirmed from inside that there's a cliff on the right." Suspense is thick. Is it a real hunt, or is it a false clue from the organization? The symbols of the diary flashed in Xinyi's mind. Those circles were originally tunnel maps, but now they looked like warnings. The inner ghost has not been eliminated. In the back seat, Li Zetian suddenly spit out a piece of cloth and laughed wildly. "Little girl, you have been fooled. The CD is bait. My people set up an ambush in the east of the city. The police? Ha, they have already collected the money. The grudges in this small town can never be broken." Fear came like a tide, and Xinyi looked back on the process. From the despair of her sister's disappearance to the team side by side, she almost collapsed countless times. The fear of loss is like the fog in a small town, sticky and difficult to disperse. But she took a deep breath and kept her voice steady. "Shut up. Su Feng, suppress him. Siyu, contact the police, use the CD to encrypt the password, I remember it in the diary." The team interaction was like heartbeat synchronization, and Su Feng knocked out Li Zetian with a punch. "Boss, I listen to you. I have backups, allies of the old organization, in the police station. Back then, I infiltrated the gang and left a line. But if I am exposed, there is no way out." Siyu gasped and nodded. Send it." With trembling fingers, she pressed the transfer button, scanned the disk and uploaded it to the cloud, heading straight to Su Feng's old contacts. The pursuer's third SUV approached, with intense gunfire and shattered glass. Xiao Wei screamed, "Sister, they are going to hit me." Xinyi braked hard, and the jeep rolled over into the ditch. The team rolled out of the car, and the smell of earth hit their nostrils. Siyu fell the hardest, and the wound on her arm was torn. She fell in the grass, bleeding profusely, and her face was gloomy. "Xinyi, run, I drag." "Don't run." Xinyi rushed over, tore off the hem of her clothes and pressed the wound, with an iron look in her eyes. "The team is not ashamed. You saved us from the inside, I will take the lead this time." Su Feng dragged Li Zetian and opened fire to suppress the pursuers. "Siyu, hold on." My allies responded, the CD evidence was obtained, and the police were dispatched. But they wanted me to reveal the last secret. I was not a traitor back then, but an undercover agent. In exchange for assistance, I had to go to the police station to confront him in person. The pursuit reached its peak, and the remaining forces were like a pack of wolves. 5 or 6 men in black jumped out of the SUV, armed with sticks and guns. Xinyi stood up, her leadership power exploded, and she grabbed the iron rod on the ground. "Su Feng, protect the wounded. Xiao Wei, take the girls to the woods and meet the female teacher. Siyu, I will carry you." The conversation was mixed with gunshots. "Su Feng, the two on the left, yours fight." Su Feng pounced, his fists and kicks were like the wind, and he choked. The old trick, the atonement continues. His arms were broken with old and new wounds, and his shirt was stained with blood, but his eyes were firm. Xinyi, believe me, this secret is worth it. The police will believe it, and the whole network will collapse. Siyu was carried on her back and whispered weakly, old sister, it's worth it. The false clues succeeded in misleading, and they split up. A man in black rushed closer, and the sword flashed towards Xinyi. She dodged sideways, and hit her knee with a backhand stick. Her self-defense skills came in handy. Get out. The shadow of the small town ends here. Psychological thrillers are layered on top of each other. What if Su Feng's secret is a trap? What if Siyu can't hold on? Fear was like a shadow, but the flame of growth was burning brightly. She shouted, Su Feng, rush to the police station. The CD has been passed, and Li Zitian is the key. During the melee, police sirens sounded in the distance, and Su Feng's allies arrived with a team. 2 old detectives, dug out from the old organization, pointed their guns at the pursuers. Su Feng, your kid finally showed up. The evidence is overwhelming, close the net. The man in black, seeing that the situation was not good, they fled in all directions, but the leading deputy, the guy who had betrayed the enemy, sneered and said, the leader has been arrested, but the remnants are still there. The grudges will continue, and the small town is waiting. He got into the woods and disappeared into the fog. The police surrounded and arrested Li Zitian. He was handcuffed and his face was ashen. You ruined everything. But the black network is deep-rooted and there are lines along the coast. Xinyi hugged Xiaowei, her sister pressed against her shoulder, tears mixed with the soil. Sister, we won. But those who escaped. The cries of the female teacher and her daughter reunited echoed nearby. Siyu was put on a stretcher, and the medical staff bandaged her. A smile appeared on her pale face. The team is all here. Su Feng leaned against the police car, panting, and said to Xinyi, the secret is exposed, it's worth it. From now on, the town will be cleaner. With the sound of sirens, they escorted Li Zitian away. The organization collapsed like a mountain, but the remaining shadows were still wandering in the fog, waiting for the final blow. Xinyi looked at the dawn, feeling warm and wary in her heart. The rescue began, and the exposure continued. The sun finally broke through the fog in the small town, like an old sword, cutting through the afterimage of the long night. The police car's lights were still flashing and it was parked next to a ditch on the side of a rural road. Medical staff were busy carrying a stretcher. Xinyi squatted next to Siyu and held her hand tightly. Siyu's face looked better than before. The doctor had just given her a painkiller injection, and the wound on her arm was tightly wrapped with a new bandage. Hold on, old sister, Xinyi whispered, with a trembling relaxation in her voice. The CD was uploaded, and that old guy Li Zitian was in trouble. The police said that the evidence is ironclad, and not a single scoundrel along the coast can escape. Siyu forced a smile and half closed her eyes. It's worth it, my insider information was not in vain. When you carried me on your back, you were really like a college student back then, full of energy. She took a breath and turned to look at Su Feng. He was leaning on the police car, letting the doctor treat the injury on his arm. The blood-stained shirt was cut open, revealing old scars and new marks. Su Feng, you kid, if the undercover secret is revealed, will those old guys in the police station believe it? Su Feng nodded, the tiredness in his eyes mixed with relief. I believe it. Back then, I infiltrated the gang to get help and lost my reputation. Now the evidence has come out and everything has been cleared. Where is Xiaowei? He glanced around. Xiaowei was holding the female teacher's daughter. The two of them cuddled up to the female teacher, and the tears of reunion had not yet dried. The female teacher wiped her face, her voice choked with sobs. Thank you, the children are all safe. Those tunnels, ghost stories like ancestral graves finally woke up. The police leader, a middle-aged police officer with a beard, came over and patted Su Feng on the shoulder. Lao Su, you did a good job. The video on the CD, Li Zetian's personal admission of organ trading, and the list of missing persons are all irrefutable evidence. We have been dispatched to seal off coastal warehouses and old houses. Those remnants, the power has caught them. He turned to Xinyi and handed over a tissue. Girl, are you a reporter? With the help of your diaries and CDs, we will rescue all the missing persons, including those of your sister. Xinyi took the tissue and wiped the mud from her face. The last page of the diary flashed in her mind. The secrets in the interlayer, like the ancient symbols of the small town, were finally solved. She nodded. Officer, I have records along the coast. The organization is rooted in ancestral grievances, but modern technology has allowed it to spread. Surveillance, false information, all on CDs. Saving people is the most important thing. Those victims, like Xiaowei, were brainwashed and imprisoned. It's too miserable. The sirens sounded again. This time reinforcements arrived from the east of the city. The bearded police officer nodded. Let's go, escort Li Zetian back to the station. You follow and record a confession. We will show you the coastal operation live. Technology unravels the knot of tradition. This small town will change from now on. A few hours later, the air in the conference room of the police station was still filled with the bitter aroma of coffee, mixed with the smell of disinfectant. Outside the window, the streets of the small town began to become lively, and the sounds of vendors hawking could be heard faintly, as peacefully as before. Xinyi sat at the long table, with copies of the diary and CD spread out in front of her. Xiaowei leaned next to her, her face regained some color, and she held a cup of hot tea in her hand. Sister, all the missing aunties have been rescued. The police said that more than a dozen of them were locked up in the warehouse. The organ trade has stopped, and the gang's money line has been cut off. Xinyi hugged her, and a warm current surged through her heart. From the threat of the anonymous letter to the victory at this moment, she was no longer the reporter digging for clues alone, but the one who led the team to break through the fog. Short thoughts passed by like the wind. Growth is from being afraid of the dark to turning on the light. The door opened, and Siyu was pushed in a wheelchair, her arms hanging, her face a little more energetic, followed by Su Feng, who changed into a clean shirt and pinned his police badge on his chest, a symbol of cleaning up the past. The team is all here, Siyu said with a smile, her wheelchair parked beside the table. The doctor said that my scar is a medal. On the inside, the police arrested 3 gangsters along the coast, and Li Zetian's deputy also disarmed. All the old scores from the ancestral grave of grudges have been revealed. The small town has woken up from the fog. Su Feng pulled out his chair and sat down, holding up his coffee. Yes, my undercover days were worth it. I infiltrated the gang and lost my brothers in exchange for help. Now that the evidence has come out, the police station has vindicated me. Xinyi, without you taking the lead, we are still wandering in the fog. He paused. With a sincere look in his eyes, you have changed from a persistent reporter to a guardian of the truth. Were you afraid of this journey? But you didn't retreat. Xinyi shook her head and smiled. Afraid, why not? When the anonymous letter came, I thought Xiaowei would never find it back. The diary of the old house was like a ghost story, and the symbols could not be solved. Siyu's cafe information was on the verge of a trap. But when the team is there is fire. She looked at Siyu. The injury on your arm and Su Feng's old scar are all the price. The small town is peaceful on the surface, but underneath it has been a dark network for 20 years. Technology surveillance is mixed with traditional grudges. It is not easy to break up. Xiaowei interjected with a brisk voice. Sister, the shadow of my brainwashing has faded. The last page of the diary, the CD I stole, is worth it. Those victims, like the female teacher, have a new life. The town will be better, the police said. Build a monument next to the ancestral graves to remind future generations. The female teacher poked her head in from outside the door and held her daughter in her arms. Yes, we will testify. The child said that the days in the tunnel were like a nightmare, but you are here. Thank you. When the mother and daughter left, the daughter turned back and waved, her eyes bright. The 3 of them were silent for a moment, and Siyu broke the silence. Looking back on this trip, Xinyi, you have changed. In college, we were gossiping, and you are now leading the charge. Growing up is not about not hurting, but about standing up straight after the pain. Su Feng nodded. As for me, I went from a lone wolf detective to the Xinyi team. The secret was exposed, and I became less lonely. The grudges in the small town, technology has solved the knot of tradition, the fog has dispersed, and hope has come. Xinyi's heart was filled with heat, and tears flashed. Yes, I have changed from my persistence in pursuing the truth to my tenacity in protecting it. The price is Siyu's scar in Su Feng's past, but saving Xiaowei and rescuing those people is worth it. When the report is published, I will write it in, how the shadow of the small town dissipated. A few months later, the autumn wind in the small town blew through the tea garden, and the leaves rustled, as if whispering old memories. Xinyi's investigative report, The Dark Web in the Fog, The Truth About Disappearances in a Small Town, was released. The bookstores were full of books and readers gathered around to discuss it. The cover is a stone tablet from an ancestral grave, paired with the pattern of a modern CD, an intertwining of technology and tradition. She stood outside the bookstore, watching the young people flipping through the books, feeling full of satisfaction. Reporting honors came, and media invitations kept coming, but she knew that the price would always be there. Siyu's arm was scarred, and it hurt occasionally when the weather was cold. Su Feng cleared the past, but chose to leave the police station and return to his old organization as a consultant, and the shadow of loneliness was still there. In the cafe, Siyu held 2 cups of hot drinks and moved her arms more freely. Old sisters, the book sales are crazy. People in the small town say you are a hero. Su Feng opened the door and came in and sat down. Hero? From our team. The coastline has been completely cut off and the disappearance case has been solved. Where is Xiaowei? She is an intern at the newspaper office and is following your example in pursuing the truth. Xiaowei poked her head out of the kitchen. Sister, I'm here. I added annotations to the diary in the report. Those symbols are now history. They laughed together. Outside the window, the streets of the small town were brightly lit, and the fog was no longer visible. The female teacher's family opened a small shop selling handmade tea, so her daughter could go to school without any worries. Police patrols were doubled, and the inscription beside the ancestral grave read, "The truth lasts forever, and the shadows disappear." Xinyi raised a glass, for growth, for the small town. Warmth spread in her heart. She transformed from a reporter and was as tough as an old sword to protect this land. As the sun sets, the aroma of the tea garden wafts in, and everything feels like new.